Venus and star blessings, everybody. Today we're going to talk about the equinox, Sun's ingression into Aries, which is the astrological new year, the beginning of all things. It's a fresh start to the will, to the cycle of the will, the sun's pathway through the zodiac. For that reason, there is a sense of new energy coming through always when the sun ingresses into Aries. Before I get into that, I just want to remind people that this Thursday evening for Northern Hemisphere, New York City time, I have a class on Venus. Venus through the birth chart, all the significators of the goddess planet Venus, from a number of different scopes, from an evolutionary scope, from a Hellenistic scope, and some psychological dynamics as well. And we will also be looking at the Venus star points, the pentagram, and what else was in that class? Venus's nodes as well, because Venus has nodes just like every other planet has nodes. Often we just make reference to the moon's nodes, but every planet has nodes except the sun. Or the ascendant actually is the sun's node. Anyway, that's another story. So that class is going to be a webinar, live webinar. It will go for around about 3 hours. It is a very informative and deeply informative and rich body of content that I've put into this class. So whether you have some basic knowledge or whether you have advanced knowledge, I'm pretty certain that you will walk away feeling it was very valuable for you. Value, of course, corresponds to Venus. So if you're interested in that, just email me and you can join into a very small group that I have for this coming week. Okay, so that aside, I would like to start today's discussion or offerings, sharings with this quote, which I did actually post in a few different platforms. So the quote is by Joseph Campbell, and it's really, I really love one-liners, you know, when you have a one-liner that is so deep and encapsulates so much. To me, that is real wisdom, you know, when you can express something incredibly profound, right, that goes to the soul of something with just a few words, as opposed to writing, you know, paragraphs and paragraphs, you know, and you're really just talking about the one thing, but you're writing and writing and writing. Some people just love to write a lot, right? And that's fair enough, each to their own. But I really love one-liners, like the one I just posted recently as well by Rob Hand, which is Saturn is the illusion. There is only one reality. And Neptune is the reality. There are many. That is one of the most profound statements. If you really understand Saturn and Neptune, that will just click into your consciousness. It's so profound. And that is actually a very powerful quote, just to mirror really the energies of the present moment with the current chaos and transitions on the earth plane on every single spectrum. The other quote by Joseph Campbell, which I think is equally profound but in a different way, is, if the path before you is clear, you are probably on someone else's path. I love that quote. Again, there's so much depth in that one sentence that it's so profound, and I'll leave it for you to reflect on. And when I thought about that today, it also just reminded me of another quote. Who was it by? It might have been by Plato. I think it was by Plato. And I may be paraphrasing, but it's something to the effect of Plato or Socrates, one of the two. The more I learn, the less I know, something to that effect. And I think, again, that's such a profound statement. And I can so relate to that in my research and study and embodiment of God's language, goddess language, the stars, the more I have learnt over the years, and I study continuously, I never stop learning something. I'm always wanting to go deeper and deeper and deeper. And so I'm always, exploring different things. And the more I do arrive at points where I think, shit, the more I learn, the less I really understand. And you must understand that in the sentiment that it is meant as well. It has tremendous depth to it, right? I'm not saying I don't know anything. Of course, I know a lot of things. Of course, I have a lot of knowledge and understanding and so forth, just like, everyone does, right? But in the wisdom of that statement, again, is so profound. And again, all three of those comments or quotes are really relevant for the current energies, which is the Sun conjunct Neptune in Pisces. And the other matter that I think is, just coming up more and more and more, which is interesting, and it's fair enough, and it's necessary as well, is the matter of what we thought about somebody, or what we thought about a group of people, or what we thought about a guru or a leader or a teacher or whatever it may be. we are being shown different aspects, of certain things, and it is causing a lot of confusion, but it is also causing a deeper inquiry into our own journey. And I think that's really important, because it's one thing to say, I'm a spiritual person, I follow a spiritual path, and it's another thing to then really embody that path and have your footsteps, match your words, walk the walk, not just talk the talk. And in that journey, it's impossible for people to not come up against obstacles, or to not come up against things that we may resist, or things that we are very uncomfortable about, or things that we feel, tremendously disappointed in because of the amount of belief we had in something or a person. Our projection onto a situation or an individual. So I think because Neptune is the ultimate source of truth, and it also functions from an earthly perspective, and largely from a spiritual, psychological, psyche type of experience, excluding the physical manifestations. Just that the more inner dimensions of Neptune is always about dissolving, right? Dissolving layers of conditioned imprints that we have in our own psyche. And the reason we need to Neptune dissolves those structures or conditions is in order for us to come closer to the truth, the oneness of all things. And that could take thousands of lifetimes to achieve, by the way. It doesn't happen overnight, or even in one lifetime. But this is the energy of what perhaps comes up, quite strongly in the ether, and the sense that we get about things when Neptune is activated in our own charts, or activated collectively, which it has been for the last few days, from the point of view of forming a conjunction to the sun. And so there's a lot of questions, inquiry around, who's really being sincere, and who's really speaking the truth. And I think we always need to find our own path in that, and our own truth in that. Sure, people will inspire us, and some people or teachings might support that path, and we might integrate with certain things that are presented to us by way of workshops we do, webinars we participate, things we read, and so on and so forth. But we do have to ultimately come to a deep knowing and understanding within our own self that's not dependent on something else or somebody else validating that truth for you. Because if it's dependent on somebody else or something else, you haven't come to that truth within yourself. It is a truth that you connect to somebody or something. So I think at the highest spiritual level for all of us, ultimately what we are all trying to do is to arrive to that truth of the one source creation to all things, to the divinity, to the truth of divinity within ourselves. I think that's the ultimate spiritual evolution, really, for every soul. And everyone, of course, is at a different path, at a different level, with different experiences. So the last few days I've been thinking a lot about these sorts of themes and feeling into the Sun-Neptune conjunction. And this time of the year is always a really challenging time for me personally, because it's approaching my own birthday, my dad's birthday, and my dad's date of when he transcended out of this world. And I mean, it's personally and honestly, it's the having to have to release my father has been a very difficult journey for many years, and still is, actually. But what seems to happen when the sun gets close to Neptune, because Neptune's been in Pisces for the last 13, 14 years, something like that, so long time. So my dad transcended this world whilst we've had Neptune in Pisces. So the Neptune in Pisces is very profound because it's been conjunct my Venus and so on and so forth, right? But my point being that when this Pisces energy starts to rise, when the sun enters Pisces, I just feel this energy a lot more, in a much more potent way than the rest of the year, for instance. And that's normal because the sun's in Pisces. And so, yeah, dreams come up, and memories, and nostalgia, and pain, and all sorts of stuff come up for me, actually. And it's quite a challenging time. So the other thing that I wanted to mention about the Sun-Neptune conjunction, it's only there for a few days, and the sun will ingress into Aries on the 20th of March. But what's really interesting about that particular ingression is that the closest planet making an aspect to the sun during that pivotal moment, which is the beginning of the wheel, it's the equinox, it's the birthing of all things, it's the archetype. Aries is the archetype that holds the absolute epitome of a new beginning. And so whether you're in the southern or northern hemisphere, because the tropical zodiac is so linked into the seasons, some people sometimes question, well, if I'm in the southern hemisphere and the sun's ingressing into Aries, it's not spring here for us. And that's correct, it's not. But it doesn't matter. The archetypal energy and principle of the sign of Aries is active all around the world, regardless of whether we're in the northern or southern hemisphere. So I just wanted to clarify that if people question that sometimes. So I was just going to say that the sun's ingression into Aries, the closest aspect by any planet at that moment is actually Neptune, which is really interesting, isn't it? Because, it's just showing us that we, at bigger, sort of more grand scale, bigger picture levels, and levels that we cannot see with our physical eyes, there's a deeply profound process of things dissolving, collectively and then individually in our life as well. So this process of dissolving, of conditions being dissolved, and which would include our beliefs, our mindsets, our certain perspectives on things, certain things we've held to high regard, or values that we've held on. It could be, you know, absolutely anything across the board. There is this process of things dissolving, right? Because there is a new earth, a new birth, which will eventually show up, I think, even more strongly when Saturn and Neptune form their conjunction in Aries, because that is a profound moment in time at 0 degrees Aries, which, as I've mentioned previously, has only occurred once. That is Neptune and Saturn forming a conjunction at 0 degrees of a cardinal sign has only taken place once in 2,000 years. I mentioned that, I think, about 2 videos ago. So, you know, there is a profound energy of things dissolving, and a profound new entry of birth that's trying to come through. And of course, when things are dissolving and leaving and departing and ending, and within that process, we may find ourselves having new revelations, new insights, new understanding, discarding and disregarding things that we thought in the past, or things that we believed. That there's a process of inquiry going on, right? But it always leads back to that one thing, which is the deep desire of the soul wanting to reunite with the ultimate truth, source of all things. That's what's happening. But in order for that to be embodied and integrated, and as I said, it could take thousands of lifetimes, we must go through a process where we remove the layers. You know, that's what happens when things dissolve. Things are lifted and removed. But it is Neptune, so it can be like walking through a fog. It can be incredibly confusing. It can be, you know, a sense of, well, gee, you know, what's really true here about this? What do I believe about what that person is saying, or what's happening over there? You know, it's a really tricky position, I think, for all of us collectively to be in at the moment, because there's a surge of things being exposed and revealed that we had no clue about. And so when things are exposed to the intensity and volume that they are, you know, we're being bombarded with so much to contend with, so much to reflect on, so much to reconsider. It's a really intense process. It's not like, you know, everything's like smooth sailing and just one thing shows up and you kind of have to process it, or, you know, revise your thinking on it. We're having so much of that going on, you know, 24/7 virtually, because of the intensity of the cataclysmic events happening on the earth. So the process of dissolving is happening at a really rapid rate, and it can be very, very confronting. The other thing that I wanted to say, with the passage of Sun Neptune just over a few days' time, which is right now, yesterday, even the day before, and, you know, for the next few days. Today's the 18th as I sit here. It's only 2 days' time till we have the Sun ingressing into Aries. But again, it will be conjunct Neptune. Neptune, of course, will still be in Pisces, so it's 2 different signs, but it is the closest planet. I'll show you the chart in a moment. So that Neptune energy is still coming through, this ingression of the Sun in Aries. But the other component of Neptune during these times is can be an overwhelming sense of sensitivity, of course, an overwhelming sense of empathy that we feel about a person, or persons, or a situation. It's not easy. I've had a lot of people comment on my social media, because I've written a couple of things about this. A lot of people are expressing, you know, experiences they're having where they're just feeling really just overwhelmed by emotion, you know, just waves of emotion overtaking them, and it's not really pointing to one particular thing. It's just this overwhelming sense, and I guess, you know, really at the heart of that is this is the collective unconscious, you know, which of course corresponds to Neptune, Pisces, 12th house. That's the collective unconscious. And so when people are, you know, super sensitive, which is a superpower, but we must be very careful with our boundaries. Even though it's a superpower, we still have to be very careful. But if you are one of those people that's really empathetic and really sensitive, I think that the cosmic waters and oceans at this time are felt, so deeply, so intensely as well. It can be overwhelming. And also I think it's just a very important passage in these few days, from a spiritual level, for our own spiritual truth, our own embodiment of that, to allow what's coming up, to feel it, to allow it to move, because that's what it will do. It will rise and then it will move. That's kind of like what water does as well. It rises and then it drops. It changes, right? There's this sense of fluidity, because it's fluid, it's water, and so we need to have the space for that, right, to move through us, as it were. And also with Sun Neptune, there can be tremendous spiritual inspiration that can come through. That can be, artistically, that can be with writing, that can be with intuition, lots of divination inspired moments or journeys that come up at this time. It is a very powerful time if you are practicing those sorts of things. There can be, very strange things that come up, but there can be very inspired visions, or just a sense of things that is normally out of our view, because it's not in the conscious part of who we are. It comes from the deep unconscious, right? And it can be also tuning into the collective in different ways as well. So there is a spiritual advancement here, if you like, from that perspective in terms of our own journey. But there is a very acute level of pain and suffering that's going on as well, that we are aware of. And whether we choose to deny it, ignore it, or suppress it, or not have anything to do with it, we still have a sense of it, because it's been revealed everywhere, and it's being talked about everywhere. And there's different levels of that happening in very different ways all over the world. But wherever we are looking, or whatever we are focusing on, I think we just need to have the courage to be authentic, to have the courage and be integral, in what feels right for us. When something doesn't feel right, you know it. Your body actually tells you. The body is so complex and so magical in terms of how it operates and everything that it does. There's so many complexities that go on with the physical anatomy, and how it heals itself, and how it recovers, and how it responds and reacts, and so on and so forth. But one very simple truth is that, and you don't have to be a doctor to recognize this or to know this, when something doesn't feel right, your body will react, and you just need to be in tune with that to recognize the signal when it gives it to you. So it doesn't matter how amazing somebody might be, that you admire, respect, love, whatever it may be. If something doesn't feel right about what you are hearing or sensing or listening to, then you've got to trust your own instincts. You've got to trust that internal guidance system that's there for all of us, right? And again, this is part of Neptune. It's trusting what you can't see, which is a hard thing, because a lot of people do operate from the Saturn consensus level, which is, well, show me the evidence. And the Scorpio also would say, show me the evidence, show me the proof. I want to see the proof. And Virgo, to some extent, would say that too. And Virgo, of course, is the opposite to Pisces. So Virgo will be, incredible at the deep research of analysis into things, and work out a lot of stuff on that level. But the polarity point of Virgo is Pisces, which is to trust, to have faith. And what are you trusting in and what are you having faith in? The divine source creation to all things. Can you see it? No. Most of us, or a lot of us, have a sense of that, right? We have a connection with that in some kind of way, each of us in our own different way. No way is right or wrong. What's that biblical quote? I'll paraphrase again because I've just forgotten the exact words. Something to the effect of my mansion has many rooms. So, something like that, right? Which is implying that, you know, God's house, that the divine source creation to all things, that he has many doors and many rooms to accommodate every single one of us. These are profound teachings, you know, full of wisdom that we would do very well to remember when we are taking one side on a position. And when we take one side, we're doing the Aries thing, right? And we are, the opposite side is the Libran side, right? Again, that's why, you know, in the whole wheel, there's all these polarities because you cannot separate one from the other. They are working in tandem. From the point of view of having really deep insight and, you know, really good understanding about yourself, your own psychology and humanity and people and life and so forth, we have to bring in Libra. You know, we have to understand that there's a diversity of ways of living, ways of thinking, ways of believing, and so forth. But the difference within that, and this is the wisdom part, which is Sagittarius, Jupiter, is that it's one thing to observe the diversity, and it's another thing to observe it and then make a judgment on it and say, well, no, that's wrong because that's not what I believe, so therefore that must be wrong. This is where we get tripped up, you know, in the personality ego part of us, because the personality ego part of us never wants to be wrong. That's a fact. So in order for it to be right, it has to make the other wrong. And what I'm saying is that in the true essence of true wisdom, when you have understanding and you observe the diversity, you have that ability to stand back and observe it and just let it be what it is, and understand that the mansions have many rooms, many doors. There's many different pathways, right? This is all Neptune material at the highest level, I think, you know. So when Sun conjunct Neptune is there, these are the sorts of themes that can come up at a more esoteric level, you could say, I suppose, or at a more reflective level, you know, soul level. But at a personality level, the Sun Neptune can be tremendous confusion about everything, or one specific thing, or a few particular things. Depends where Neptune is in your birth chart as well. And let me actually just bring up a chart for us to have a look at. So this is just a chart for today. You can see the Sun and Neptune are together in Pisces at 27 degrees or so. I want to grab here. I might grab that. So there's the Sun Neptune conjunction. And in 2 days' time, the Sun will be in Aries. I'll show you what that looks like. So we're, you know, even again at another sort of holistic, bigger picture level, we are at a point in space and time, in the seasons, in our life, in the cycle of the Sun through the zodiac, which is at the end of the wheel. So there's something significant closing, right, for all of us collectively and then individually. That's just a given with the Sun in Pisces. And with the Neptune there, what I've been trying to point to is the matter of how many things are actually dissolving. And a lot of it is not very easy and not very comfortable. We have this sense of nostalgic attachment, you know, to the past, which is Cancer, of course. And that's very natural as well and normal. And there are some things from the past, whether it be traditions or values, that, you know, still serve us today. So it's not that we have to let everything go, you know, everything we believed or everything we've held valuable or dear in our heart, but there is an undeniable deconstruction of this reality that's taking place. So yeah, that's really the energy and the sentiment of things at the moment. And we are, you know, preparing for this new beginning, which is the sun in Aries, which, you know, for me personally, I love that energy. I mean, yeah, sure, I have sun in Aries, so that's true. But regardless of that, I think, you know, just that sense of new energy coming through is it's inspiring, you know. All the fire signs connect to inspiration. Aries, of course, is a fire sign, and inspiration just means being in spirit, you know. So you know, it's just a nice energy to step into moving forward. And what's going to happen as well, which I think is really, really interesting. Let me just show you. As the sun progresses through Aries. So first of all, there's the sun ingression. It happened hours before this, which is why it's on the 20th as opposed to the 21st, because you can see there that it's nearly 1 degrees of Aries. It's 0 degrees and 52 minutes. And look at how close Neptune is. Now, the other closest aspect is Mars, which is a sextile, but Neptune is the closer one out of the two because Mars is 28.5 and Neptune is 27.5. So Neptune's the closer one. So that tells us something about this Aries season. You know, there's still a lot of Neptune things going on, even though it is a new beginning. And as the sun, you know, moves through Aries, this is what I'm really curious about, is the conjunction to the North Node, and then followed by a conjunction to Chiron. And we know that this Chiron North Node conjunction has been extremely powerful for many individuals and certainly for the collective. Chiron is a really powerful archetype and unfortunately does bring up a lot of deep pain. There's no two ways about it. But of course, it has the signature of the healer and the healing that is basically necessary. And where is it? In Aries. So speaking to every single one of us individually, the necessary healing that we must try to find a pathway into and work on that. North Node, Aries. Chiron, Aries. And now the sun, you know, coming to this place here, I think what it's going to probably do is shine the light on those very things. So whatever we've maybe not been aware of or have denied or haven't worked on or haven't understood well enough, what does the sun do? It brings light. The sun is the light and the truth. The light and the truth, always. So the sun's presence here in Aries, you know, conjunct the North Node, conjunct Chiron, it's going to bring some truth and light to what this Chiron North Node in Aries is pointing to for us individually and for the collective as well. So I think that's going to be a very powerful few days there with the sun's presence in that degree, reaching the North Node, and then it'll be a few days later, it'll be on the Chiron. So let's see what it brings up on the collective sphere. But fundamentally, as I said, it will shine the light and the truth, because that's what the sun does. Okay, what else did I want to mention today? We have, obviously, we have solar and lunar eclipses, coming up as well in Aries Libra. So, the sun's passage in Aries is probably going to feel even more important for this reason. It's forming a conjunction to the North Node to Chiron, and then it's going to be involved in solar and lunar eclipses this year. I think the first one is the solar eclipse in Aries, which happens in April, right? So that's the sun and the moon with the nodes, isn't it? So let's see, solar eclipse, so it's new moon. So yeah, it's basically just a few days after this portal right here. So I think that gives us a clue that this equinox and this passage of the sun ingressing into Aries, which is the beginning of the wheel, has a potent undertone because of the eclipses that are going to rise out of this polarity, Aries, Libra. And so obviously that depends on where it's happening in your birth chart as well from an individual perspective. But I think collectively it's going to show us a lot as well, and going to be, quite an important equinox period, I feel. But of course, I will come back and talk about the eclipse. So it's a little while away, so I'm not going to talk about it now, but I'm just flagging it as an important undertone of the sun's passage through Aries for 2024. There's that. And what else? I think, I think honestly, that's really the main message that I wanted to share with you guys today. Just the moment that we are in now with the sun Neptune. And if the sun is the truth and the light, which it is, and Neptune is the ultimate source of truth, which it is, then the sun Neptune conjunction in Pisces has the potential to also shine truth in our way as well. I guess it's a question of our own ability to be able to see that and to recognize that as well. And what always makes it tricky is the Neptune factor, because the Neptune energy, as it is projected in the physical dimension, can, without a doubt, beyond a shadow of a doubt, for the most part, create utter confusion and also deception as well. So we have to be really, we have to have our wits about ourselves. We have to be really careful with what we are absorbing and what we decide is truth or isn't truth. And I think the main thing that can help us with that is our own instincts and intuition. Just like I said earlier, it's when something doesn't feel right, it usually isn't. And if you're not sure, then maybe sit on the fence, do the Libran thing, instead of making a complete call on something or a complete judgment on something or a complete decision on something or taking a very specific action. If you're not sure, then don't. Wait. Sometimes waiting, being patient, patience is a virtue. Sometimes waiting can be a very powerful aid in your journey, because you may reach, it may be days later, it may be weeks later, it may be months later, just depends, right? But you may reach a point where you finally are clear on something. You do understand the truth of the matter or the situation, personal or whatever it is. Or just maybe things in your own life that you're considering on changing or doing based on what somebody has told you, for instance. You know, just you have to, what am I saying? You have to know it within yourself. You have to find that pathway within. It's so important, so important. And Sun, Neptune is, the Sun is the truth and the light, and Neptune is the truth. But like I said, because Neptune, as it's projected on the earth plane, can bring confusion and or deception. So if you're not sure, don't act. Don't make that call. Simple as that. Yeah, I'll be very interested to see as well, though, with this solar journey in Aries. I think the most unique thing about this solar journey is the eclipses coming up that connect to the sun in Aries, and the North Node Chiron factor. And also, yeah, I forgot, just remember, thanks. Mercury is going retrograde in Aries. There it is. It's already gone retrograde there. So let me just see what date that was. There it is. So it stations on the 1st of April, 27 degrees of Aries. And will actually be in Aries as a result of this retrograde period till, I think, mid-May. So it's quite a long time for Mercury, you know, to be in one sign. And this year, the retrogrades that Mercury is going through is in all the fire signs. So it's the fire triad that Mercury, the remarkable planet or deity Mercury, Hermes, Apollo, evening star, morning star, messenger of the gods. You know, Mercury, do not forget, Mercury was the god that was associated with ruling astrology before Uranus was discovered. There's a lot more to Mercury than people realize. I really love that Mercury is going retrograde in the fire signs. I think will I come back and do a separate video on that? Let me think. It's 3rd of April. Yeah, you know what? I will. I'll come back because we've still got quite a few days before Mercury stations retrograde. And I'd like to unpack that with a bit more than just a few comments. So I'll come back and talk about that in a separate video. But really what I was trying to get to there is that the sun in Aries, which is the equinox, which marks, you know, new beginning, the beginning of the wheel, I feel is just really profound this year because of the solar and lunar eclipses, as I've mentioned, being in Aries, Libra, because the North Node has been conjunct Chiron in Aries, and because Mercury is going retrograde in Aries. So the Aries energy is really being, you know, amplified. It's really being emphasized this year a lot, actually, for these reasons. And, you know, I mean, the challenging side to Aries, of course, is that its ruler is a malefic, which is Mars. And when Mars is Aries Mars energy, when it's unintegrated and it's just acting at that pure desire, let's say unconscious type of level, it can be quite destructive because it'll just be out for itself. That's the nature of it. So I guess we may need to recognize that that's part of this energy as well, that, you know, people can be a lot more aggressive or pushy or demanding or selfish. That's always a possibility when you're talking about Aries energies, you know. But I think with the Chiron North Node and Sun there, it's going to be a powerful time to show us of, you know, what we need to still work on within ourselves, you know. And the eclipses are happening there as well. And Mercury is going retrograde in Aries. So there's always two sides to every coin, right? And there's always a polarity in everything, and we live in a world of duality. So there's a bright side and a side that's more challenging in anything that we look at, whatever polarity, whatever axis, whatever planet, whatever archetype, etc. You can't just look at it in a one-dimensional manner, because nothing is one-dimensional. So there's numerous possibilities. Yeah. But I'll come back to talk about Mercury retrograde in Aries in a separate video very, very soon. So I think I'll sign off and leave you guys here and wish you a happy equinox. And yeah, let me know in the comments how you're going and how you're related to this content and how it speaks to you. And also if you have any questions. And don't forget about my class webinar this Friday. It'll be Friday in Australia, and it'll be Thursday night in Northern Hemisphere. It'll be 8 p.m. New York City time, so you can convert that to your local space. And as I said, you know, it doesn't matter if you're a newbie or if you've been around for a while and studying. There's a lot of value in what I've put together for this webinar. And Venus is my favorite deity. It's my favorite goddess. It's my favorite energy, favorite thing to talk about, really, because she's the most magical, mysterious, complex goddess, actually. There's so much to Venus that so many people still do not understand. And I have to admit that the two levels of astrology that informed me of her depth and complexity over the years has been evolutionary astrology and also Babylonian astrology and the Venus star point. The combination of those, which is what I'll be bringing to this webinar, has opened up this infinite world of wisdom pertaining to the goddess Venus that I know there's still much more to come in my consciousness and my understanding of her. And that's one thing that I've always been so in love with astrology about, is that no matter how much I learn, there's always much more to learn, you know. No matter how much I understand, no matter how much I study, there's always so much more. It's never ending, you know. That's why I'm so in love with the stars. So I'll see you guys soon. Thanks for listening, and bye for now.